Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Want to Build an Empire with MAPS coach Kristen Cole. Please note this webinar is being recorded and you will automatically receive the webinar recording. If you have questions for your coach, please type them into the questions box located in your webinar taskbar. Following the webinar, if you have any questions about today's call or coaching programs, please email us at fasttrack@kw.com. That's FASTTRACK@kw.com. That's all for me, Kristen. Take it away.
Awesome. Well, we are so glad to be here today to talk about building an empire. And we have a class coming up that really is the foundational course in order for you to build your empire. And it's called Scale Your Business. So today, Joe, we just want to talk about, some of the questions you and I were discussing this morning. So what kind of questions have we been getting that people are going to want to know about this course, how you build an empire? Is this class for me? So tell me some of the things that you've been asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kristen. And as we're going through these questions, I just want to encourage everybody who's listening right now to use the chat box. And if you have a specific question, to please take this time to ask us. I'll be reviewing the chat box and asking any additional questions. So to get us started, Kristen, first and foremost, who is this class designed for? Who should be considering enrolling in this particular 8-week coaching program?
Glad you asked, because I think sometimes there's a huge misunderstanding about what this class is and what it isn't, because we've been working on this class a long time, and truly it's for anybody who wants to grow their business. It could be a team leader that wants to grow the business of the market center. It could be a single agent. It could be a PC coach that wants to grow their program. This program is about growth, period. And when you look at growth, any business growth, there's some foundational things that you need if you're going to grow it.
Right.
Expansion is a whole nother animal, but right now what we're talking about is growth, and growth is certainly a piece of expansion. So what I would say is anyone who wants to grow, because they're going to hear us use that word a lot, and this is a very hands-on class. You and I were talking this morning is how is it different from ESO? How's it different from career visioning? And the way it's different is in between the weeks, we're going to give you assignments. And if you have questions, we're going to help you with those assignments so that when you're done with the 8-week course, you have actually built and constructed, or at least have all the tools that you need to build a foundation that will allow you to grow.
So if I hear what you're saying, Kristen, I don't necessarily need to be at the point in my business where I'm looking to expand my sales business to a second, third, or 10th or 20th location. I just need to be in a position where I'm ready to grow my business, whatever that means for me with where I'm at right now.
And I think the biggest piece of that people need are systems and checklists. Okay, Kristen, great. You tell me to go build a playbook around an open house. Where's the template for that? How do you do that? Most people, if they've got a template, they can get started.
Right.
It's just super tough if you don't have a template and you don't have a checklist.
Right. Now, just out of curiosity, for those people that were looking at this course at the beginning of this year, we were going to launch this earlier, and then COVID happened. And so we're getting to go and to launch it now, which we're all excited about. So I'm just curious, how has COVID changed the course content or your approach to this course, if at all?
Oh, it's changed a lot. I have the honor of being in Gary Keller's top 100 group each month. And interestingly enough, before COVID, Gary met with us twice a year, usually in May and November. But when COVID hit, he started meeting with the top agents every single month. And he really helped us walk through COVID and take care of our people, take care of our businesses, take care of our bottom line. He would have guest speakers on like Keith Cunningham, who wrote The Road Less Stupid. And so what they're also going to take away from this is a playbook on what do you do when a crisis hits? Because foundationally, if you know the pieces that you should have in place so that you can immediately go to that playbook when a crisis hits, because the crisis could be called COVID, the crisis could be called the financial meltdown of 2008. There's crisis is a crisis.
Sure.
And so there's some foundational pieces that you need to know, because here's the thing, here's the big difference. During crisis mode, we all get super tactical. We have to get super, super small, right? To make sure the business survives.
Right, absolutely.
And then as we kind of come out of crisis, we start be back in growth mode again, which means strategic. So how do you, if you're going along and as we were in super growth mode, I mean, the market was hot, it was not red hot, it was white hot. Then all of a sudden COVID hits, you have to learn how to get really small and really tactical. So
Right.
they're going to take the benefits of everything that Gary has taught us, and we're going to teach it to them so that they build their foundation right to withstand anything.
Yeah, and you mentioned ESO earlier, and so I'm just curious, is ESO a class that they should have taken prior to enrolling in this 8 weeks? And if they've not taken it, should that slow them down? If they have taken it, is this very different? I guess just elaborate a little bit more on the differences between this and ESO.
Sure, whether you've taken ESO or not, this class is for you. You don't need to have taken ESO for this to be a prerequisite. And ESO is, you're learning something very lecture style over a day and a half, and then you have to go back and implement.
All of now you have all these 30
Exactly.
action items.
Right. Instead, this is an 8-week course designed to help you chunk it down, take it a bite at a time, so that you are building it and you're actually implementing at the same time. So it's very hands-on, it's very interactive with me as the MAPS coach and also with our team to make sure that they've got like a tool that they need. So we're also going to give you the tools. So I think that that's the exciting part of it. You don't have to get done with the class and say, okay, now what? How am I going to implement all this? And we all know when we have 50 things on our to-do list, we know what gets done.
Right.
Nothing.
Right. So you've taken the time to really outline, if I'm ready to scale my business and take it to the next level, what do I need to do this week? And then we're going to give them an entire 7 days to go out there and execute. And then we're going to come back week 2 and say, okay, well, how did we do? What do we want to do next? And then additional week of work. And so it kind of just builds on top of itself.
It builds on itself. Exactly. And you said scale. Here's the thing. Most people don't think about it, but they ended up scaling a big fat mess because
right.
they haven't put the foundational pieces in. I'll give you an example. Gary says you need to be able to control your business. Well, you and I both know that there are lead gen levers that are out of our control that some people use all the time. And it doesn't mean they're wrong or bad, but Gary would say build your foundation on lead gen levers that you control. And so we're going to teach them what those are and how they can focus their business more on lead gen levers that they can control, that, their business they don't wake up tomorrow, Facebook has changed their algorithm and all of a sudden they're dead in the water.
Right. Right. And we talk about this concept of red light, green light, and analyzing our levers and which ones are paying off, which ones are we getting a return on investment, and which ones do we need to either pause, pivot, or pull the plug on.
Sure. And, we come back to COVID again because I'm in several locations across the country. And what's interesting is what lead gen always works. The path is still the path. We all need to lead gen no matter what. The difference is the mode and the method, meaning what's the message of the moment and how are we going to deliver it? That can look very different in COVID. Here's a really huge surprise that surprised me. I'll give you an example. Can you control door knocking your database or your GeoFarm?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But would most people think right now that would be a bad idea, that no one's going to answer the door?
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people.
But it's not true. The truth is we've actually tested this now, and we actually know how to go about it. People are answering the door. We know how to be distantly safe. We know how to do this during COVID. But the curious thing is right now, if you called 100 people, how many people would actually answer the phone, Joe?
Yeah, depending on the time of day. I mean, 20, maybe 20, depending on if I caught them at a good time.
So we've been keeping statistics since one of our team members started door knocking a specific GeoFarm. And in any given week, it's between 57 and 75% of the people answer the door.
Because they're working from home, they're
right.
Their kids are at home.
So do you think that's a better idea than calling? So that's what we mean by not only are we going to help you learn the lead gen levers to control your business so no one can ever take it away from you, but secondly, we're going to teach you the during the crisis that we do have, what's working and what's not, what to double down on, because really COVID has taught us, and any crisis does, to narrow your focus and then double down on it.
Right.
So those are the types of tactical things that we're going to talk about in building your foundation for a controllable business that produces fruit, when right now it's all about getting the listing.
Right. So speaking of that fruit, what would you say, Kristen, is your ideal outcome for somebody who enrolls in this course? What is the expected result after 8 weeks? What is your hope for them in their business after completing this course?
Good question. And we're really, we're taking the 12-week year to heart. And I say that because you will have spent 8 weeks, which really more like 8 months. And what we have found by narrowing your focus, and we're going to help you do that, is that your execution level goes up. And so we expect you to be able to increase your sales. Now, will it double in 8 weeks? It may not double, but what we know is that when you narrow your focus and execute on the things that matter, you are going to increase your sales. Let's say you need to go hire someone. So we're also going to talk to you about, well, where would you go find those people during COVID? Well, that's a curious thing, isn't it? It's another opportunity that COVID gave us, right?
Yeah.
With still in lots of parts of the country, 15 to 20% unemployment, there's lots of great people in hotel hospitality that are out of work, right?
Yep.
Don't they usually work pretty good in real estate?
They do. They're social. They like people. They like talking. They
Exactly.
like interaction.
Exactly.
High personalities.
So just like career visioning teaches us how to go find those people, but really COVID has given us a very different opportunity that if you ever wanted to make your first hire, we're going to teach you the pieces of where would you go looking. Like right now, there's a lot of teachers that are furloughed too, and we know that teachers also make great agents. So if you want to grow your agent business, you want to grow your market share in your agent count in your market share or market center, or you want to make your first hire. The point is that this is going to be very much focused on controlling your business. And what I would say is in any shift, we go back to simplicity. We go back to the foundational pieces. And if we can get that built right now during COVID, the right way, it survives all markets. So we're really teaching you during the right type of a market to build an absolutely fabulous business.
Right. And you mentioned earlier in the conversation around playbooks and operating procedures. And I'd love to just talk on that a little bit more because this is not just a class where you're going to listen, like you said, and then have to go figure it out. Talk a little bit more about some of those resources and how those editable templates and different resources that we're going to provide to the enrollees of this course are going to be able to take away and then be able to go quickly execute and implement these concepts in their business without having to start at ground zero or start over from scratch.
And that's the hardest thing, is getting started. If you have a template that is editable, that you can follow and you can quickly get a playbook in place for open houses, you will execute. Where you won't execute is where you have to start from scratch. It just is very difficult. So we want to put resources into your hands that you can use quickly, that there's guidelines and checklists for it, so that it's plug and play, really.
Right.
All you have to do is edit the things that you want to edit, and you can make it yours.
And going right along with that idea of execution and implementation is this concept of accountability that's automatically built into this because it's an 8-week course versus a 1.5 or 2-day course.
Right, exactly. So a lot of folks, they finish ESO and they're like, now what? And so in this course, what we're going to start with right away is examining where we're at. You have to examine reality before you can change your reality. We have to know where we're at and get honest with yourself in terms of you may have several holes in your business, but there's probably one hole that if you focus on it would make the biggest difference in your business if you got after it.
Right.
We just want to make sure there's no excuses left for not being able to execute. So we want to make it as simple as possible, and we want to put it in the hands of the players to actually go make a play.
Right. And from what I understand, Kristen, is you're actually going to give specific actionable items each week. So what we might call homework, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now that we've talked about a concept, an idea, now let's all go implement. Let's come back next week and discuss what the results of that implementation was, and of course then the next building block thereafter.
Exactly. And we may discuss the homework a lot because different people end up with roadblocks, or they need additional help, or did I do this right, or now how do I actually get this? We can come up with great things, anyone can, but can we get adoptability?
Sure.
In the organization, or in your market center, or in your PC program, or in your real estate business? Because you can create all these pretty things in the world, but then how do you get people to adopt it and use it? And so we'll talk about all those things, but the one thing that I would say is if you've ever taken courses, made a great checklist, all these things you were going to do, and then never did them, this is going to be a course that if you really do want to execute, We're going to make it as easy as humanly possible so that you say, what's going to happen at the end of the 8 weeks? You should be able to cut some of your costs. You should be able to examine your talent and whether or not you have enough or not enough, whether you need to make a hire or not make a hire. Examine your systems and your models. And if you don't have any, we're going to create some.
Sure.
So when we say playbooks, it's not necessarily just around lead gen. It's around operations. It's around profit first. It's around client care. It's all those things.
Right, and elaborate a little bit on how over the growth of your career, those SOPs and duplicating those processes has been so imperative to take what you figured out in Wasilla and then expand it to several locations, right? People need to have that guide so that when you're not there, and Gary Keller even talks about it during his podcast, Think Like a CEO, about how when he started to expand to Keller Williams, the big piece that was missing was him. Right.
Right.
So he had to start
exactly.
documenting processes. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, when Gary, he realized that when he walked away after sharing with everybody, how to run a market center, they very quickly failed because they didn't have the playbook.
Right.
So he had someone document what he did and how he did it for over a year, pictures, audio, film, and then he went back and taught them with a playbook, and guess what? They ran beautifully.
And then and now we are what we are today.
Exactly. So the wheel's round. That's what Gary Keller did, and this is the same thing. We're going to teach them how to do the same thing, which I think is very, very cool. And in Gary's podcast, Think Like a CEO, the other thing he talked about was culture. And we're going to touch on the culture piece in here too, because we all know that we can walk into a market center and every market center is culture. They're not all the same.
Sure.
And so how do you actually, that was a big piece that we worked on when you came into the organization, because your mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspective that's a mouthful, but how do you really boil it down to a simplified version of words that everyone in the organization knows the words and they know what they mean and they know what it looks like.
Right.
And I think that's a big piece of it too. What's the vision, and then what is the culture in the organization to get us there?
It's one thing to read about culture and to understand culture, and in a book or listening to somebody speak about it. It's another thing to take those concepts and then go create a culture, create the relationships and the feeling of culture within your business. That's not something that you can just do overnight. That's a constant work in progress and something that you constantly have to be aware of. Otherwise, to your point, your culture may get away from you. And it may evolve into something that you didn't necessarily intend for.
Right, because there's always culture. It just may not be what you intend.
Right.
So, and I think, now more than ever, 2020 was difficult for a lot of reasons, but also 2020 gave us a lot of huge gifts. And one of the gifts was a heightened sense of awareness of how important it is to be present in relationships. Mm-hmm. And that's an inside out job. So that starts with us as, with you as an organization, or you as a single agent, or as a market center, or if you're running a PC program, if you're recruiting, whatever you're doing, it starts on the inside first. And so I think it's really important that we talk about the being present in relationships, because it's like Gary said, the path is still the path. We still need to recruit, or we still need to go out and lead generate every single day. But how we do it and the method and the message may be very different. Right. And so I think, but if you've got the foundational piece that prompts you to look at, those questions and how to create that, I think that's the key. And doing it the first time's the hardest, right? Remember the first playbook we wrote? How many iterations of it?
A lot of modifications.
But then once we got it right, writing a playbook today is super easy because we have the template, we have the foundation, and we know what works. So we just want to share it with all of you. It's made our lives simpler. We want to make yours simpler too. And that's what this is about.
So I'm going to the chat box, Kristen. We have a few questions. First of all, help people understand, what is ESO if they've not taken it before, because we mentioned it earlier and there were some questions around what is that?
It's expansion systems orientation, and it's really just like FSO, franchise systems orientation. It's an overview of how to build a business and then how to expand it. But having said that, even it is a high level overview, and you can walk away super overwhelmed because you aren't implementing as you go. And so ESO is a fabulous course to take as an overview of what any great business looks like. You know, Gary has the 13 points of a great business plan. However, what we're doing is we're going now down to the tactical level. Okay, how do you actually build that foundation? How do you build that hub to where it's rock solid? Like if I stepped away from my business for 2 weeks, like I did a couple years ago on vacation in Greece and never checked in with anybody, the business still runs. It's got to have a foundation to make that happen. So we're taking it down to the tactical, we're taking it from the strategic level to the tactical level, whether you're a single agent or have a team of 25.
Got it. And that answers the question that was just come up in the chat box about a single agent who's newer and wondering, you know, is this still recommended for me? I don't have a huge SOI. Does this class still make sense for me? And based on what I hear you saying, Kristen, is this really can help anybody at any phase?
Oh yeah, because we'll also going to talk about, you know, as a single agent, what's the one best thing that you could do? And the difference may be just the number of people that you're touching, not necessarily the difference in the message or the path or the playbook.
Right. Now, let me take this opportunity to remind everybody that's listening, we are happy to answer any specific questions that you have about this course or how it will impact your business directly. So please take the time, write a comment or a question in the chat box. I will read that to Kristen and we can get your answer right now.
And this course starts January the 27th. It's on a Wednesday and it's once a week for 8 weeks. It's if you go to the MAPS website, it's a group coaching program. And I believe it's at 11 a.m. Central, 10:30, 11 a.m. Central. So we're going to type in the chat box where you can go to actually sign up for the program too. But I guarantee you won't be disappointed.
Perfect. All right. So go ahead and ask your questions now. Type them into the chat box. I'm happy to relay those over to Kristen.
Got like 3 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we will make sure that we get the link. As far as the content goes, Kristen, if somebody is unable to attend a specific week, they already know that they have a vacation planned or whatever the case is. How is that going to work? Is it going to matter if they can't make a week? Are they going to have access to that content still, or are they going to really miss out?
And that comes up, you know, sure. Emergencies come up. So yes, they are going to have access to that content so that they can go back and review it as many times as they wish. Of course, you know, my guess is some people probably will want to take the course a second time. As you grow your business, that you focus on different pieces of the business. And so this is really starting from scratch and taking you through all of the different pieces of the business that you need to think about: lead gen, systems, clients, people, operations, and of course, follow-up, you know, client aftercare, and culture. They're all big pieces, big rocks.
Sure. Now, there was one specific question. Are we going to cover more or various types of lead generation other than, for example, cold calling? That's not what this particular agent loves to do. So we will cover a variety of different lead generation levers because, of course, we want to empower teams to empower their agents and themselves. Sure. On a variety of different levers.
So we will cover the spectrum really, but we're also going to give you the playbook so that you can create it for what you specifically want to do. And also keep in mind that then the conversation we're going to have also is tactically for right here, right now. What is Gary saying? You know, the best method is, or the best message is, or how do you frame that I care call, or you know, so we're going to be taking very tactically what Gary is teaching us right now, and also kind of strategically in what works in all markets. We all know lead generation works in every market. It's just you might have to tweak it a bit. Like we all had to figure out, you know, how to do Pi Day very differently than we did a year ago.
Right.
We still had Pi Day. It just looked different. So that's the tactical part.
Perfect. So I just sent everybody the link to the MAPS coaching website where you can get additional information and sign up for the course. And Kristen, before we close up, there was one final question about the cost. I know you mentioned it, but if you could just reiterate the cost.
Sure.
And the return on investment of that cost. And so that way they can make a well-informed decision as to if this is a good time for them to enroll.
So it's $199 a month, and that would be for 2 months. So $199 for the first month, and then $199 for the second month. So it's a total investment of $398. And if you think about it, that is less than the ESO, career visioning courses when we used to have them live, and yet they're going to get the very tactical of how to build that foundation over 8 weeks versus a big overview over a day and a half.
Sure. Perfect. Okay. So it looks like that was the last question in the chat box that we had for today. So I think at this time we can probably wrap up.
Awesome. We'd love to have you in the class. We promise we will give you world-class information. We'll share everything that Gary Keller has shared with us over this past year. That is, because here's what he said. We've got to breathe oxygen into our businesses first and make sure that they survive, or there won't be any, and we need to make sure our market centers survive and our businesses survive so agents still have a place to go work. So we're obviously going to talk about those tactical things, but we're going to walk you through, starting from the beginning. Where are we? Let's examine reality, all the way through to the other side, which is client aftercare and everything in between. So everything in the kitchen sink.
Perfect.
We hope you'll join us. Again, it's in the chat box where you can sign up, and it starts January the 27th for 8 weeks.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us today.